Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. We've had a little bit of snow outside today, but nothing much. So I'm happy that we don't have too much. It's just January and we're getting closer to springtime. So we'll get into that later, but we have a new president, and the president has had his inauguration, and we still have COVID. And before we get started with that, I'd like to just say that the number of COVID cases right now is just incredible. And I will turn that over to you, Kevin, so you can talk about that.
All right. Hi, Donna. Thank you. I'm just going to share some of the updated slides that I've been sharing with folks for last few months. And just 1 second. Okay. So my point of reference for the update today is the last Board of Selectmen meeting. So looking back till January 12th, today's January 21st. As of today, we've received today's report earlier in the day. We have 2,149 positive cases, which is an increase of 198 since January 12th. We continue to be in the red status on the state level reporting with 832 daily incidences per 100,000, which is an increase of 16.8. So when looking back to the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 12th, that is an increase. I do have some good news coming up, but that is a continued increase in both the daily incidence per 100,000 and the percent positivity, which is really a simple calculation of what percentage of those that are tested from the town of Shrewsbury actually come back positive in the test results. So we continue to provide daily updates, weekday updates to the residents with the daily numbers that we receive, and we report Saturday and Sunday. On Monday, I know this is an increase since the last Ask the Manager, but updated through January 12th, there's been 53 COVID indicated deaths that the town has been made aware of. And the town hall and public buildings remain closed to the public. We are not even offering appointments at this time, given the level of infection. So we have employees working on site and off site. Every office is staffed, using a lot of remote technology for phones and other means of communication. And our first responders did start receiving their vaccinations on January 11th, and over 50% of them have been vaccinated whenever I looked at the beginning of the week, and I'm sure a few more have occurred in the last 3 days.
Now, I just want to interrupt you because there's so much information that you just gave us. I want to point out that we've had 13 deaths since just before Thanksgiving. So at that point, we had 40 deaths, and we've moved up to 53. The other interesting factor is that right after Thanksgiving, we had 798 cases for the month of December. And for January, we're already up to 575. And for a point of reference, from March until Thanksgiving, we had approximately 659 cases. So in 2 months, we have doubled what we've had, or tripled what we've had for cases. Right. And I think it's great that the first responders are now able to get the vaccinations, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, it is. And I'll flip the slide kind of to continue along with this significant surge that we've seen through the holidays. We really have seen that indicated in the daily numbers. We saw a significant spike in late November and into early December. Certainly a high level of infection and daily cases throughout the month of December, but then another increase from the end of December and into the first few weeks of January. So it took us until well into December to reach our first 1,000 cases, and that now here we sit roughly halfway, a little beyond halfway through January, and we've doubled ourselves again at 2,149 cases. You can see that more than 50% of those cases, actually 60% of the cases, have all occurred within the months of December and January. So there's definitely a holiday and winter surge that is playing out here. So with that, I think, and I say I think, the numbers tell me that we have good news. Whenever I look at the 7-day trend, the 14-day trend, and the 30-day trend, we see improvement in each one of those time blocks, with the most significant improvement being over the last 7 days. Again, looking back to the Board of Selectmen, whenever I did that report on January 12th, the 7 days prior to that meeting, there were 234 cases. And now over the most previous 7 days, which is January 15th through the 21st, we've only had 141 cases. Now this is still, I say only 141 cases. That's still nearly equal to the entire month of April. So, in comparison to our early days of this, we're still way above. Our daily case counts are still triple what they were then, more than triple what they were then. But over this most recent period, we're seeing an improvement in the number of cases in these time blocks. And then, for instance, again, prior to that, the 12th, the 14 days prior to that, there's 466 cases. And then over the last 14 days, from the 8th through the 21st, 353 cases. So again, over 100 less cases, which is a good improvement. Looking back to 30 days, we only see a marginal improvement, about 8 less cases. But certainly there's some spikes, still 825 cases in the last 30 days. And again, almost 1,500 cases in the last 2 months. So nothing about this winter surge like the spring, when we thought we were in a surge, I think is how I see it. So hopefully the numbers continue to trend in the right direction, but it appears that we are. And the black line through this chart shows the average daily trend, and we can see a marked decline really over the last 2 weeks. As the numbers on a daily basis have continued to come down, so it's certainly a good thing. Now this could correct itself. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. It could change, and we could see an increase again, but consistently now, especially over the last 5 days, we've come out of the 30s and 40s per day, and we're in the mid 20s to upper teens. So,
and we used to think that was outrageous.
Outrageous.
We talked about 19 at one point, and we were horrified that there were 19 cases, and now we're just trying to get down to 19.
Yeah, we started, I think when we talked in September, Donna, we were offended or concerned with high single digits, 8 and 9 cases a day, which was certainly a trend. You can see in the middle of the chart on the screen that really from the end of May and into early September, there's more days of 0 than not. So, the summer months were really, really good to us looking back on them now. Certainly still had cases, but they were all single digit cases and a lot of zeros. And, we're not seeing anything like that at this point in time. We're in the, again, upper teens to mid 20s over the last few days, but really over the last 3 weeks, we've been as high as 57, as you can see, which is quite a challenge.
And how does this translate to school children?
Well, here's our age analysis at this point, and the trend continues to be most significant in the first bracket, which is a 20-year bracket from 0 to age 19. That group has been the fastest growing and most impacted by this, fall and winter surge. We started off in early September with about 20 cases in the 0 to 19 category. And now here we are, 391 in early or mid-January, and is certainly the largest age cohort. Again, a little bit of disparity in this, and that it's 20 years within that single bracket. We don't have data any better than this level, but it's certainly a flip-flop where in the spring, the most impacted were the 50 plus, and now we're seeing it much more even over most 10-year cohorts, but 0 to 19 is our largest group as presented here. So in these numbers you'll see are only through the 15th. We get them on a weekly basis every Friday afternoon and do our best to share them before the end of business of the week. So a few less cases than we have in total, but it's been very representative over the last 2 months.
What's interesting is that the flu numbers are down and down significantly, and they connect that to the mask wearing. So what I can't understand is how, if the flu numbers are down, why is the COVID number still going up? Mm-hmm. And, we don't have that answer, but I find that to be puzzling. And hopefully with the number of people that will be increasing in the state with the higher contagious type of COVID, hopefully, we won't see a negative impact with that also, because we're still trying to figure out how all of this can take place. The hospitals are certainly overloaded. They have so many COVID cases that they can't even think about people with regular illness because they're so overwhelmed with COVID. And I hear from many people that they hesitate to go to the hospital when they're ill, when they would typically go for medical attention. They're not getting that medical attention. So that is of great concern too. So people need to still go, be in contact with their physicians, go to the hospital when it's appropriate, regardless of whether it's COVID or not, because the other medical conditions need to be treated also. So, absolutely. I mean, other than preaching, wear your mask, clean your hands, people obviously didn't listen when it came to meeting with families and gathering for holidays. I don't know what else additional advice can be given.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not an expert on it, but just from what I've seen and read, I see with this more easily transmissible variant of COVID that extra layers of masking is very important, and the advice on that is just like we've been talking about since the beginning. Just consider where you are, right? So if you're going to be taking a walk outside, your normal cloth mask might be okay, but if you're going to go to a grocery store, whenever it's busy, you may want to consider, an N95 mask with a cloth mask over it, or 2 cloth masks or something like that. So it's all, very circumstance oriented, and you should just really think about your level of exposure to other people, to keep it as low as possible. But then if you do have to be amongst others, to do everything that you can to protect yourself.
I just want to interrupt one thing. Yep. People have a false sense of security with their N95s. And if you haven't been properly fit tested for that N95, that N95 isn't going to do you any more good, or maybe less safety and less protection than if you had a disposable or a cloth mask on. And the other important factor is I've seen so many people wearing disposable masks repeatedly. That disposable mask is good for one wearing. It's not good for repeated days of wearing. So they also have a false sense of security. Having failed the fit test a couple of times myself, I know that I think I have my N95 on as tight as it can be. And, people say, oh, but I put it on so tight, and it still leaks through. If you're not properly fit tested, you don't know if you're getting protection from that N95. I can tell you, in the hospitals, you see many people wearing double masks. And so the question of how many layers is appropriate is something else that I'm sure they'll be studying. But the medical people are wearing more than one mask most of the time.
Okay.
You see that more and more. The question that comes up is phase 2, which means people that are high risk, people over 75. When will they be able to get it? The people are very apprehensive because they see on TV all the long lines in Florida of all these people getting their vaccinations, but they don't want to. They don't want to miss it. There are many people that want to get it, and of course they want to be first in line, but they don't know where the line is or how to get to it. And so doctors' offices are getting overwhelmed. I bet town hall is getting overwhelmed with calls with people asking that question. Is there any information that you have at this time that you can tell us and share as far as when phase 2 will begin and how people would go about getting that vaccination and where they would go? Do they need appointments?
So I don't know a whole lot, to be quite honest with you, and I'll try to share what I do know. So I know that there's some states that appear to, I don't know, be ahead of Massachusetts when it comes to opening it up to closer to the general public, even if it's age restricted or health condition restricted with comorbidities and things like that. One of the challenges that I see happening in those states is that just what you said, Donna, there's tons of people in line. They open it up and the level of vaccine that they have on hand just doesn't support it. So then people are frustrated because they hear that, if you're over such and such an age, you could get vaccinated, but you need to call and make an appointment, and there's none left. So while Massachusetts appears to be behind the curve as far as opening it up, I think the approach that has been taken across the state is we're not going to open it up, even if that means delaying it a day or two or a week or two, so until we know we have enough vaccines in the right people's hands to be able to provide them. I have heard that regardless of when those groups open up, that appointments will be necessary, but it's kind of, at least in the context of the facility you're going to receive it from. So you may be able to go to a larger facility like Gillette Stadium or Fenway Park, without an appointment, although I don't know. But you're not going to be able to go to your doctor's office or, to anything that the town would run or to your local CVS without an appointment. So don't waste your time. Don't expose yourself to those things, because you may be able to talk about this a little bit more than I can, Donna, but after you get vaccinated with this vaccine, you have to sit for a certain amount of time. So it doesn't really matter how quickly we can administer the vaccine, within a minute, right, of 100 people, then there's 15 or 20 minutes you've got to sit and be observed by a medical professional. And that's where I think the time restriction comes into effect more than any other aspects of the vaccination process.
Along with that, if we've all learned that our doctor's offices don't give the vaccination, the flu shot, for example, for seniors, they can't get that at their doctor's office. They have to go to CVS, for example. So I have a feeling that they're not going to involve themselves in the vaccination process for COVID. I have a feeling that will be turfed off also. So I think as far as the town goes, it will be important and helpful for the residents to have some central location in town where that can take place, like a flu clinic. Have it set up so people can come in, because I don't even think that CVS can handle
Right.
what would be coming through.
I can just assure everyone that as soon as we do know something, that it will hit every possible media outlet, type of information, type of communication that we have. And we're eager and willing to do that. We're prepared to play our role in the distribution of the vaccine. We've been conducting drills, assembling volunteers, hearing from physicians who are residents that want to help us, but we just don't have the green light or the vaccine to be able to do that. But I promise, whether we're distributing it directly ourselves, asking folks to go to a surrounding community, telling them they can go to another place within the Commonwealth. We will do that very clearly. We will make it as impossible as possible for you not to miss your turn in line. And we'll over communicate that as much as we can. I can promise you that you're never, some people are very lucky, but you're never going to be lucky enough where you think, well, if I call right now to the town board of health, that maybe I'll be the first in line. That's not how it's going to work. So certainly very busy in the public health office. Happy to take your call, but we don't have any additional information on the vaccine at this time. The senior center doesn't either. I promise you that as soon as we hear something that's concrete, we'll get it out to everyone and get folks ready and get them vaccinated. So we've been successful with our first responders and those that have been eligible to this point, partnering with the city of Worcester through their what they're calling a large distribution site for first responders at the Worcester Senior Center. And Governor Baker visited last week, the second day that it was open. So it's been very successful, continued success from our partnership with the city of Worcester and the 6 other surrounding communities. So we'll let folks know as soon as we know anything.
Thank you. We had loss of one of our retired police officers, Stephen Fosha, who was a town resident for many years, and that's certainly a loss to our town. So our sympathies go out to his family and to all of his friends, because he did have a lot of people that knew him. What do you think the biggest 3 issues are going to be facing 2021 besides COVID for the town?
Yeah, for the town, I mean, I think, we'll have financial challenges. I think you've heard the superintendent talk about, what his needs are. Our revenues have certainly been impacted by the pandemic. We did a good job in recasting our revenue forecast for fiscal year 21. And it's coming to fruition, which is good. So we're on budget. Our revenues are on budget, but they're much lower than they have been in previous years, and that will carry forward definitely throughout this calendar year as we set fiscal year 22. Beyond the budget, it will. We're seeing it right now. I know everyone feels it. It's just managing the fatigue of working in the remote work environment and keeping people productive. And then, at least in the next 6 months, we have some, unfortunately, kind of the same feeling that we had last spring is, do we run recreation programs? We want to be there to serve people. We don't want to do it unsafely. I know those are all mostly COVID related, but it's hard to come up with a circumstance that isn't impacted by it. So I mean, I think it's types of programs that we'll offer throughout the summer for recreation, keeping employees motivated and focused, and dealing with some financial challenges.
And it's budget season is upon you. So is it going to be a doom and gloom story? What can you tell us?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't. It's going to be very challenging, absolutely. I think our revenues are not going to recover in a single year. I think that the local receipts, which is a relatively significant portion, 15 or 16% of our total revenues, will continue to be just pretty much flat. They're not even going to be back to fiscal year 20 levels at this point. I think that from what we heard earlier today at the Mass Municipal Conference, Lieutenant Governor Polito spoke and said that our unrestricted general government aid will increase by 3.5% because they are projecting state total revenue to increase by 3.5% in their budget process, which is good news in the longer term, but we will lag behind them in their recovery. So, that's just a small percentage of our budget. It's about 3.5% on a $4 million line item. So, now, speaking only for the municipal side of the house, I don't see having to make staffing cuts or layoffs or anything like that. But there's, certainly not going to be any room for anything new. And that, that's just frustrating. I think we were on a really good trajectory about a year ago at this time. We had financial challenges, but we were kind of putting together a multi-year strategic plan just, prior to the start of that process to figure out how we were going to approach the challenges and move the organization forward. And I think that conversation was going to be left for 2023 and fiscal year 23 and beyond. So it's just a unfortunate setback for about, 36 months or so.
So as some of the selectmen want you to project a 5-year plan, is that even something you can realistically do given the everything that's been happening?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I find it even difficult projecting 1 year in advance because, I can't rely upon any set of data that's really going to inform, how much revenue may grow or not grow. So I just end up having to be really conservative. It's paid off. Our conservatism is paid off in fiscal year 21, the year that we're in right now, because, we ended up reducing revenues on the local receipts side by, almost $2 million. And as I said before, unfortunately, that's coming to fruition. And, there's lower meals tax, lower motor vehicle excise tax. I don't think that, most people didn't like buying new cars as an activity under normal times, but I don't see, people going out and just shopping and seeing what kind of deals they can find. Those type of activities aren't happening, and that does impact our revenue. So, yeah, it's definitely challenging. We're forced to kind of just, move the program forward sideways without any significant growth.
So a year ago, you were a fat cat town manager because things were going good and you saw all the positives. Any regrets a year later?
No, I mean, I wish we could get some of the optimism back. And we never overextended ourselves just because of the timing of it. Really, I don't know if it's going to come out right, but really, the beginning of the pandemic happened right in the middle of our budget process, and that allowed us to make changes. So we weren't in a situation where we had to put a budget in place and then go back to town meeting and make changes. We could just kind of string that process along. Yeah, it's challenging because I know, the talents of the department heads and their visions and we have a new chief of police and has a different mindset for how he wants that organization to run, and a new COA director who basically has been our COA director for 13 months, with the senior center being open for 4 of them. I see all that energy and excitement, kind of being bounced around without, the full ability to implement what it is that they want to do. So,
speaking of the Council on Aging, it seems that the Council on Aging is going full steam ahead, and you forget that the building isn't even open. They have so much happening that it's difficult to even keep up with it all. They've been very, very busy, and they've had a lot of accomplishments along the way this past year, even though they've only been open for 4 months in the year.
Right. Yeah, that certainly is true. And just knowing all the other things that Holly wants to do over there and programs, services the citizens that we're not getting to is the frustrating thing. And there's the other one, Priya Rathnam, who's been our new library director since the beginning of April. She hasn't had the pleasure, obviously a long-term Shrewsbury employee, but she hasn't had the pleasure of being the library director with a library open to the public.
Really?
So, how can you implement your vision and plan whenever everything's turned on its head?
So I guess the true sign of a true leader will be those that can withstand the pandemic and all the fallout as it affects their departments.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got, a good acknowledgement from Standard and Poor's the other day that, recognized the swift action that we took in our budget and held, our AAA bond rating, and identified that, our financial outlook is still stable. That doesn't mean we have the same amount of money, but it means that we're managing within our means still.
So that's good leadership. So thank you. And just talk a little bit more about that AAA bond rating, because that really is a real compliment to the town and to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank you. We're extremely pleased. It takes a lot of work day in and day out. It's something that never really leaves your mind. Definitely grateful that we didn't get a AAA and then lost it in the next rating. It talks to our good financial stability, right? That we manage our annual operating budget with ongoing revenues, that we're not infusing it with kind of gimmicks or one-time revenue sources just to continue to, cover wounds, that we're stable in that standpoint, that we have good policies in place, and that we're working towards limiting our financial liabilities like our retirement and OPEB. Unfunded liabilities. So, yeah, I mean, it's a huge benefit financially to the taxpayers. I said at the Board of Selectmen meeting the other night that if you look at what we told town meeting, they were going to have to pay for, the new police station project in total, principal and interest, versus the outcome of the bond sale on January 12th. We saved, there's a savings of about 2.1 million. And then if you go back to Beal versus what we told town meeting versus what the actual results at that time were, that was 4 million. There's $6 million there that we never have to put into the tax rate. That's that's like a public health problem, right? Like no one ever sees it, so it's never really a problem. But
right,
it's a result of the bond rating and big companies like Morgan Stanley, who bought our last two sets of bonds, having their capability to do that and give us a good rate. So very happy about that. I mean, $6 million is almost, is a significant capital improvement project in and of itself. And then this spring we have some bonds coming up for Sherwood that we should be able to refinance, and that will continue to lower the burden on the taxpayers as well. So we try to do everything that we can to mitigate the impacts.
So congratulations with that. Is there a town meeting date in the future?
We don't have anything planned until May 17th, which is the annual town meeting, but we've already been talking about that because what are we going to have to do, right? Remember last August, we were outside in the tent with some ants crawling all over us. But what will our plan be? Will we have any flexibility, through the existing emergency declarations to alter it? Given that our town meeting starts at 7:00 on the first or third Monday in May, that's what the bylaw says. It's not really conducive to the number of articles that we have to get it done in one night. So what are we going to have to change? Part of that is an interesting challenge is that the existing moderator, Chris Mena, is not running. So we know we'll have a new moderator who will only be installed officially in office a few weeks before the actual town meeting comes to fruition. So, we certainly know how to run it, but the moderator is a key part of that. And I know Mr. Mena will continue to advise and, help, and we'll go from there. But it's just another dynamic. We plan for town meeting, but don't have to plan for the logistics.
And speaking of town meeting, the precinct town meeting members being reallocated according to population shifts?
Yeah, so, the public service announcement that I'll make with this is, hey, remember when we told you it was important to fill out your census, your annual town census? It really is, because Well, I have no expectation the number of residents in any single precinct or the town in general has declined. The returns on the town census from last winter showed a notable decline in precinct 9, which means that they ended up losing 4 representatives at town meeting, and they're allocated among a few of the other um, precincts that didn't necessarily have a significant increase in population, but the proportion that was lost in 9 meant that they got some additional members. So really, it's just critical that everyone fills out their town census and we can have accurate information, because if nothing else, it's going to impact this spring's election, because we use that data from last year to set up our annual election this spring, and there'll be 4 less seats available in precinct 9.
Now, you mentioned that Chris Maynor is not seeking re-election. And so we will have a new town moderator. We will also have a new town clerk because Sandy Wright, God love her, she's retiring in February. And she really brought, along with Ann Daigle, they brought the town clerk's office forward. And they have done phenomenal work, and they've had phenomenal demands put upon them. And Sandy did that certainly with the help and support of her team in the office, along with volunteers. And when will you make a decision as to who the new town clerk will be? Because up until, well, Ann Daigle was the clerk before Sandy, and Ann was the first appointed town clerk. Before that, it was an elected position. So who does the hiring for that?
So I get to sit on the sideline for this one. It's the Board of Selectmen is one of their appointments. But they're, certainly we'll support them. The position has been posted internally, which is always our first step. 95% of the time, we post internally to see if there's interest. So that vacancy has been announced internally, and we'll see interested candidates there. And then the Board of Selectmen will have to make a decision to move forward with internal candidates or to further open it up externally as well. And from there, they will look to make an appointment before the end of February, as you noted, with Sandy's retirement occurring in the last week, and have a new clerk on board for the beginning of March.
And it'll be here soon. And with that, we will hopefully be through the snowstorms. But you've had, I think we could say that the town has had good luck with minimal snow to date.
Yeah.
I'm sure like the last this is the 3rd year, I think, that we haven't had anything huge until the end of January. So we've made it this far. But do you have any comments about the snow budget?
Yeah, I mean, everything's is in good shape, really good shape at this point. We've had 2 significant but not major events late in December, and so it's been very manageable. We haven't had any very, very long duration storms. Haven't had any storms, with more than 12 inches, which is certainly very manageable for us. We'll see what the weather pattern is. It's not always the big storms that get us. It's the icing and the mixed and those type of events. But we've been pretty fortunate that the budget's in good shape. Still at this point, the material usage is down, which is good. But we're just a long way to go.
And we've had another retirement in the police department. Mike McGinnis, who has been a leader and an outstanding officer for the police department, has recently retired, and it's very publicized on cable TV. And he did a lot for not just the police department, but for the town. And so that's another change. So we keep having all these retirements. I guess it's inevitable, but new faces come on board.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Go
there's
ahead.
certainly been a lot in the police department, this year. Well, over the last 12 months, I should say, which, we're putting officers through the academy and more signed up to go to the academy in February. And those have had their COVID challenges at times as well, which has delayed the outcome. But yeah, it's part of a very much of a rebuilding process in the police department just because of that turnover.
And you have a firefighter on deck who just came out of the academy in November. Do you anticipate that hiring to be coming soon? And that was Jonathan Evangelo.
Yeah, I would. There's been quite some turnover in the fire department as well. As we have. It's hard for me to keep up, and I have to apologize just because after we hire someone, if they're a firefighter, normally they always have at least a certain level of academy training, and then once they're on board, normally for up to 6 months, then we send them the way to the fire academy for a longer amount of time. So I think it's a backfill, and he may be actually on the job working already. But it's just a time delay of officially graduating and coming on board.
And the credit union, the Shrewsbury Federal Credit Union, donated a van to the school department. That's a substantial donation for not just the school department, but for the town.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. It's the continued partnership with the school department and the credit union. With the number of their community-facing activities that continue to benefit not only the students, but, businesses, and helps get interns around to jobs if they're still able to do that now. So it's definitely a benefit.
And another example of a business in town being a great neighbor for us. Yeah. So may all the businesses that are doing well take a lesson. But thank you to the credit union. And Beale School will be coming on board in the fall, and they'll be redistricting. That goes along with that.
Yeah, the construction certainly will be, completed at this time. We're making our way, beyond 60%, and the building is scheduled to be turned over to the town in May. And it's all buttoned up and a lot of interior work going on. Be laying, we're getting ready to put the final flooring down and things like that in a lot of sections of the building. So certainly a lot of progress.
Do you tour?
Occasionally, yeah. We get to go in and see it. It's really coming together. You can see the architect's vision playing out, and feels like a real building. And
Cytiva has opened up in town?
Yeah, they're manufacturing bioreactors. I don't know what that means, but that's what they do.
Something important.
Something important, yeah. So we're very happy to have them on board and have good quality jobs in town and occupying space that was otherwise vacant. So that's definitely a win-win for the community. And happy to have them as a partner in the community in our growing bio presence. So
when they talk about the number of jobs, new jobs, I get confused as to whether they mean the number of new jobs combined between Shrewsbury and I think it's Westboro, or do they mean the number of jobs in just Shrewsbury?
Yeah, they've only been offering combined total employment increases in the state. I believe that their only other location is Westboro, but something like
I'd like to know how many it is just for Shrewsbury, because it could, for all I know, the building in Shrewsbury could only, house 25 people as opposed to, and so I wonder what the illusion is and what the fact is with that. And Edgemere Crossing, is there anything new other than the barren land that we see over there now?
Yeah, so there's construction projects, from a third party perspective, look to move quickly and then slowly. And this is one of those slow phases. So you obviously saw a lot of clearing that made the area look barren, but now they're actually installing all their underground utilities. there's going to be a series of private roadways, parking lots, detention basins, retaining walls. So they're working on all those things right now. In addition, they've actually pulled the building permit for their first grouping of residential buildings. So the clubhouse, several garage, detached garage facilities, kind of like you see over at Lakewood Commons, and then 3 actual apartment buildings. So they pulled the building permits for those, and so they're working on getting footings and foundations and all those things you really can't see from the street. That's all underway. They continue. Their plan is to kind of build the project out in sections, so 2 or 3 residential buildings at a time. There's 9 of them in total. And then they'll start to bring on the commercial aspect once we get into spring.
Now, that property backs up to the lake. Am I correct?
Yes.
Have they developed anything significant where they actually show the beauty of the lake as not just like a wall blocking the beauty of it?
So the good part of it, I think, depending on what your perspective is that the project, the buildings are not. They're near the lake, as you say. They're proximal, but they're not right on the lake. So it's not going to be like there's not a lot of clearing that has to go on from the water's edge or anything. They've actually did a really good job, and the Conservation Commission was really impressed by the proposal that they brought forth because of its limited impact on the lake. So one, that means someone's not going to have waterfront property in their apartment, but from the lake side of things, it's not going to be that impactful. We still have a very natural feel to it.
Good. In Purinton, is the cul-de-sac happening? Or
It is, yep. We are moving forward with that, with the redesign of Route 20. We received a MassWorks grant for the Lake Street intersection. Mass DOT and the private developer there at the redevelopment project, we're all partnering together. This will make Puritan a lot safer. What was happening is, people would use it as a cut through, and you're coming off of Route 20, going up the hill, you have your foot in the gas, and then you're in a extremely residential neighborhood street, and it just wasn't conducive. So we have some design issues to work through as far as creating the cul-de-sac so we can get public safety and public works equipment turned around back there, which we have to work with the neighbors to get a little bit of the property, to get the cul-de-sac in, but that's all well underway, and we're lining that up for this summer's construction season, along with the improvements in Route 20 and the Lake Street intersection.
And going back to the CARES Act, we now have permission to spend that money through December 2021. So for the rest of the year, do you have any plans for that money?
Well, at this point in time, that means that we can continue to provide the same level of services, especially in the school buildings, as we had for the first part. Our projection from January 1st through the end of the school year was that our enhanced custodial services and cleaning type activities would be about $400,000, and we didn't know where we were going to get that funding from. So that $400,000 represents a little less than half of the amount of money that we have remaining. And then, we continue to have a disproportionate amount of unemployment claims because of the general unemployment. So we're spending some money on that. And then just general cleaning supplies and stuff like that. So as I say a lot, $1 million would be wonderful in my bank account, but when you're managing 1 million square feet of public buildings, it just doesn't go very far, especially with the level of service that we want to provide to our students and keep the spread out of the schools. So, next December 31st is a long way away without knowing if we're going to have any other opportunity to receive any other funding from the federal government. So I think we'd be in good shape to provide the level of services that we are right now, especially not knowing how next year's school year would start. But this will definitely get us through the end of the the fiscal year, and then we'll have to reassess. But I would think at that point in time, we may only have about $300,000 left.
So, with the enhanced cleaning, how do you monitor to make sure that that enhanced cleaning is kept up to the high standard?
Well, we use our internal town staff for that. So we've augmented staff with contracted workers. So we used to just have contracted firms in there in the evenings that would do kind of the deeper cleaning and things like that at the end of every day, whether it was in the town hall or the school or the police department. But so we've added them during the day for high touch surfaces and, additional support to the different model of education that's going on. But they're all being overseen by, our seasoned public building staff. So certainly increase their workload, but yeah, we monitor that daily with our staff directly.
I'm just thinking of quality control. The more you clean it, you think, oh, I can skip that or whatever. Not that they do. I just think that sometimes it could be a natural fallout.
Well, beyond the public building staff, as I'm sure you'll chuckle, we have some very interested teachers who are making sure that their classrooms and hallways and areas are being cleaned as well. And so certainly if someone's not performing, then they let us know, and we haven't had very many instances of that. But it's something that we address right away because it is critical in these times. And I think we've been very successful. And part of the reason there is no or minuscule school spread is because of the work that's done day in, day out by public buildings and
the teachers,
changing filters, and teachers, and making everyone do their part. And I think it all comes together. But changing filters more, being right on. If it's a 30-day filter, changing it on day 29, and all those things. So,
are you still a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? And do you feel bad that they didn't make the playoffs?
Well, they lost I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I did grow up in the Pittsburgh region, and I'm disappointed they lost the first round, but they lost their mojo at about week 11, so it wasn't surprising to me. That's what I told some folks who may have wanted to harass me about it. Yeah, if you watch them in week 10, I'd be really disappointed, but I watched them the whole season. The writing was on the wall. They kind of lost their momentum.
Sort of like the Patriots. I know.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Centec North, Allen property. There's movement. What's the movement?
Yeah, so it's under purchase and sales agreement with a private developer. That's about all I can say at this point in time. That private developer is going through their due diligence process to see if they can build on what they want to build on there. And if they can, it's kind of a standard part of a real estate transaction when you're dealing with a 60+ acre commercial property. But it would be a huge win for us. There's no doubt about it. I wish we could talk and share more about it. But there's no sense of, doing that until we know the project's going to come to fruition. It would be a great benefit. Certainly the terms of the agreement will come to light, but I'm really satisfied with how they're likely to play out if this developer is able to move forward. So
substantial tax revenue?
I can't really comment on that right now.
I can't get anything out of you, huh? Okay. And then Stony Hill, you have at Stony Hill, there's 2 parcels of land, and there's movement there. Is that good movement, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, the property's permitted for the residential development. It's a split development that coincides with both of those parcels. There's more activity on the eastern parcel right now, which was the aspect that wasn't cleared. So that's being cleared, and we've been in communication with the developer, and they plan to continue to move that aspect of the project right through and get permits for underground utilities, foundations, and things like that within the coming weeks. And then they're within the scope of their permit on the western site. We have heard rumblings that they may try to sell that in There's a commercial developer that's interested in it. That's what that land's actually zoned for. Not really residential, but since it was a 40B project, they could, pretty much overcome any zoning obstacles that we had. So whether that comes to fruition or not, but it's in some ways, I know it's disruptive to the neighborhood, and most folks would rather live next to a wooded lot than a developed lot. But it's nice to see at least we know what direction the project's moving in.
And so as our town moderator chooses to not seek re-election, Jim Kane has decided to not seek re-election to the Board of Selectmen because he's going to be a candidate for town moderator. So that means there's change on the Board of Selectmen, 1 of 5.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely, another change coming down the pipeline for that. So, we'll try to manage things apolitically and with the full board and keep the stability that this town has enjoyed. I look forward to talking with, anyone that decides to become a candidate, and working with whoever is fortunate to win that seat on the board.
Very good answer. Very safe answer. So Shrewsbury Cultural Council, this is something I could be interpreting it wrong. I'm not sure. But I noticed that it appears that money from the Shrewsbury Cultural Council went to the Worcester Chamber Music Society and the Fitchburg Art Museum. Why isn't that money dedicated strictly to projects in Shrewsbury?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm not familiar with it, to be honest with you, Donna. I'd have to look into that and see what the initiative was. I think you know a little bit more about that than I do.
Well, I know when it was initially set up and the plans were put in place, it was supposed to enhance school programs and library programs and so on to make things better within the town. Now, I realize some of these things maybe you could stretch it to say that it's regional, so we do benefit by it. But I would like to see that money go straight to, and I'm sure there's plenty of things that can take place right within the town. And that's where I'd like to see that money go. Just my opinion. And we only have a couple minutes left, and I wanted to talk about the open space recreation plan, which began in 2019 with Central Mass Regional Planning. And the plan requires that it has to be updated every 7 years. And it has to be an approved plan because it makes the town eligible for money, for grants, for land and parks. The committee needs to either adjust their members, or there needs to be a membership of a committee, or the, who are they? The Parks and Recreation Commission can also manage this. And I understand that there was discussion amongst the selectmen as to which way would be the best way to go. Has anything happened with that?
Yeah, so the plan is itself, the update of the open space recreation plan has been submitted, and it was determined, I think the planning committee recognized, I think, what the board was asking, which was, if there really is a need, rather than create this another additional body to, have a role in the process, that if we need to expand Parks and Rec or make it a subcommittee or do something like that, that was the preferred approach. And that is the direction they moved in. We appreciate that. If only, we always like to have a staff member to do as much work as we can for the committees to support them. All committees for the most part are volunteers, so adding a separate committee on a separate night becomes challenging to do that. And I think it makes a lot of sense, for open space recreation programs to be closely aligned with what the Parks and Cemetery Commission is doing. So that was the approach.
Yeah, and I don't think you need to overlap roles, and I think you can get blurred lines once you start doing that. But anyways, this has been a very fast hour. It's nice to see you. Happy New Year.
See you. Yep. Happy New Year.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.